Welcome back. You're watching Sky News Tonight. The top stories this evening, and the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has said the UK has reached the peak of the coronavirus outbreak, but the Chief Medical Officer warned that cases would not fall fast. 763 more people have died with coronavirus in hospital in the UK. That takes the total to 18,100. And the government has promised it will meet its target of 100,000 coronavirus tests a day by the end of this month, a more than five-fold increase on current levels. Well, let's get more now on those efforts to increase and the promise to increase coronavirus testing in the UK. Latest figures show less than half of the current available capacity has been used. And the government now has just 8 days to increase testing by more than 80,000 to meet that 100,000 target. Well, I'm joined now by the President of the Institute of Biomedical Scientists, Alan Wilson, and from Epsom in Surrey by the Chairwoman of the British Medical Association's Board of Science, Professor Dame Parveen Kumar. Very good to talk to you both. And let's start, first of all, about why this matters, rather than whether the target can be hit or not. And Professor Kumar, first and foremost, the testing matters because, as we understand it, there are thousands of NHS and care staff self-isolating at home because they've got a sniffle or a cough or a member of their family does, and they don't know if they've got COVID-19.
Well, that's absolutely right. The British Medical Association have calculated there's about 100,000 of NHS workers, obviously doctors, healthcare workers, nurses, etc., who are self-isolating. Now, the tragedy is that they're dying to get back to work, but they can't because they're ill. And if they knew that they were positive, then at least they'd obviously stay at home, but also the family may need to self-isolate for 14 days and so on. But if they were negative, they could actually get back to work and help their colleagues help the patients. And we're really desperately sad that this cannot be done.
Yeah, it needs to be done as quickly as possible. So, Alan Wilson, what do you understand the problem to be? Is it shortage of tests, shortage of testing centres, a bit of both, or distribution? You tell us.
I think the situation is very confused at the moment. Actually, many NHS laboratories, and certainly in the mass testing centres in Manchester, Milton Keynes and Glasgow, there is capacity to do this testing. I think what's missing is linking up those that need the testing with that capacity. And I watched to see there was a problem about getting to the testing and people distances, but actually capacity local in many areas at many communities should be looking to try and join up that capacity, and that's what we're doing well.
Mr. Wilson, we are missing every third word in your responses at the moment, so let's try and re-establish a better line and continue then with Professor Kumar. And on this issue of particularly the big testing centres, we've been hearing, haven't we, that a lot of NHS, a lot of care staff can't travel the often rather considerable distance to go and get themselves tested. Do we need to make it more localised and smaller?
Absolutely. I think that we need to make it more localized and also the access easier. Now, it's all very well saying we've got drive-through testing centres. The answer is that's not entirely true, because to get tested, you've got to ask your healthcare employer whether you can actually get an appointment, and then you get text back an appointment, which you then attend. So it's not easy to think about a drive-through area. And also, if you were ill at home and you're ill, really ill, and you have to get out of bed, you have to drive yourself to the nearest testing centre when you may not be feeling very well. And if you were, say, somebody who didn't have a car, there's absolutely no way they're going to be able to get there. And I think Alan was, if I may call him Alan, was just saying that, you may be travelling from one town to another, which seems crazy when people can't get there. So, I mean, there's a lack of access and the ability to actually get there. And if you get there, at least make the whole provision easier to do. But we need a lot more, and it'd be wonderful to have home testing, but that's a long, long way away.
Yeah, I mean, but over-centralised, as we've been describing there. But what happened, I was hearing a couple of weeks ago about the D-Day analogy, the small ships idea. Yes, you've got the big destroyers and the big carriers, these big testing centres, but of course, the Dunkirk analogy, let me get that right. One of the features, yeah, there were big ships and carriers in D-Day. One of the features was, of course, the small ships, the small testing centres, the small laboratories, which are dotted around our hospitals, our medical centres, our universities, that presumably would be a lot closer and a lot more accessible.
Yes, I think the test is not entirely easy to do, but I mean, the collection's easy, and then you've got to analyse it. And of course, the analysis has got to be done in recognised laboratories. What some hospitals have got is got pods in their centres, and the local staff can go and get themselves tested there. And the tests then all go to the central big hospital, which is actually analysing them all. Because we really want something which is standardised and that the analysis is correct. And then, of course, on the other side of it is many of these tests are not really 100% sensitive. They're around about 50, 60, 70%, depending on which test you do.
Glad to say Alan Wilson from the Institute of Biomedical Scientists can come back in, hopefully with a better link established, Mr. Wilson. And just tell us this, taking up what we were hearing there from Professor Kumar about the accuracy, the reliability of some of these tests. We know that quite a few million, in actual fact, have been ordered and sent back by various nations from China. Are we able to manufacture now in our own country?
No, not really. We always had a bit of a disadvantage in the UK that our presence within the diagnostic industry was always pretty weak. And I think that's a lesson for the future, that we had to broaden and establish that base of diagnostics within the UK. But at the moment, we're reliant on imports, largely from mainland Europe and from the US. And that always put us at a bit of disadvantage. If you're referring to the home antibody kits that have been purchased recently and possibly will never be used, yes, I think that's a different story. But certainly at the moment, the jury is definitely out on the home testing kits for antibodies. And none of those tests are yet to be proved reliable or sensitive enough for actual clinical use.
That's all rather worrying. Right, OK, well, we're getting then to the predictions. Mr. Wilson, stay with you because you haven't spoken much because of the line being down there for a bit. So do you think, given there's only, 8 days or so to go of this month, that the government can hit this target of 100,000 tests a day, given that we are hearing today, 18 to 20,000 being carried out?
No, I don't think so. I think for two reasons. I think we've still not got that capacity. Although the large testing centres in Manchester, Milton Keynes and Glasgow are now starting to go online, and they will deliver quite a large increase in capacity. So it will surge end of this week, beginning of next. However, I think the real problem is we haven't got the pathways yet to get people in for testing. So although we might build the capacity through the expansion of these laboratories, but the pathways are not clear enough yet. And it's obvious from the activity we're seeing in these sampling centres at the airports that people are not either aware that they're not willing to travel to them, and these pathways to get people in to be sampled are not clear. And I think that's the main reason we won't meet that target.
And you're nodding along there, Professor Kumar, and we may get to the rather perverse situation, mightn't we, at the end of this month, where perhaps the 100,000 tests are available, but they're not in the right places. And as Alan Wilson was saying, people might not even know they're available.
I think that's absolutely right. There's a lack of awareness, and we must tell the people that it's there. But the problem is the categories for those who are currently allowed to get it tested are really quite rigid. You have to be ill, first of all. So we're losing out a lot of people who don't show symptoms and who actually do have the virus. Very difficult. I mean, I wish we were in the sort of position of Germany, who really had it all there, with good laboratories, good testing centres, reliability. We're just not there, as Alan was saying.
Professor Dame Parveen Kumar, Alan Wilson, great talking to you. Thank you very much indeed for your expertise.